This is a short video on what Sage Mouth Cloud can do. I've seen some other videos online, and they have, of course, some tutorial materials, but it's kind of, this is too little and other things are too much, so I thought I would just do something myself. So this is the URL. It's cloud.sagemath.com, and I have an account. If you don't have an account, you have to create one in sort of the standard way. So I log in, and for whatever reason this comes up. Let's just ignore that for a second. I clicked on projects in the upper left hand corner here, and these are all virtual machines that are doing various things. If I click on one of these and open one of these projects, then it'll start the corresponding virtual machine. That screen that we were looking at before is settings, and maybe it's not the best time to talk about that. So let's just open up one of these projects. This is my cryptography class from 2015, and it's loading the virtual machine. Sometimes it's a little slow if it's getting hammered. And you can pay something like $7 a month, and if you do that, they guarantee you that it runs a little faster, but I haven't had too many problems with it. So this is my home directory. This is a Linux operating system, a Linux virtual machine. You can actually open a literal terminal window here, and so these are the documents that are in the file. Later on, if we talk about writing code for like a computer science class using Sage, I'll talk about this some more. But in case it wasn't clear what I just did, I clicked on new. So this new button is kind of important. It's where sort of everything comes from. These are some of the files that you can create. So Sage, Sage is this extension of the Python programming language that does a lot of mathematical stuff. It was spearheaded by this guy from the University of Washington named William Stein. And it does a lot of cool things. Maybe I'll show that off in a second. This is for the Python programming language. This is a terminal into the virtual machine. That's what we just looked at. You can write LaTeX documents or Markdown documents. Markdown is like a simplified version of HTML. And the other ones I don't use very often. So as far as using this to support a course, you have to put email addresses here of the students that you want to join the course, and you can probably do it in some sort of mass production way. I forget exactly how, but let's just say that you type them all in one by one or something. So then the students get notified by email, and then they associate an account with your class, and then once that's accomplished, you have the ability to send them assignments and also collect the assignments. So this is the final exam. I had them take it in class on their computer terminals. So after I assign it to them, it won't look like this if you do it yourself, because this has already been assigned and collected and returned. But first you have the option to assign the assignment to all the students, and then it copies this actual final is really just a directory, and it'll copy this directory into the directories of all my students, and then the students do the work, and then you tell them that on a certain day you're going to collect it. So on that day you press the collect button, and then this would collect from everybody. And then what that does is, back in your home directory, there's something called collect here. And so if I did collect it, or when I did collect it, everybody's work got copied into this directory, and these hexadecimal numbers are their usernames. It's kind of ugly, but inside each one there's a note that's created by the system that tells you the actual identity of the student, and so I can look at their work and see how they did and leave notes for them. And you can see that they also put a lot of code in here and did a lot of other kinds of work in this directory. So I make a note here that has the student's grade in it, and then later on when I return the assignment to the student, they can read the note, and you can also assign a grade there if you want to. But that's basically how course management works. Um, there's settings, and I guess that's important maybe, but just when for the purposes of a brief overview, I'm going to ignore that. Um, okay, so that's course management. Now this thing might be a little bit bewildering if you are unfamiliar with Linux, and you also don't have to interact with the system at all through a terminal window if you don't want to, because you can do things like you can create a directory. How do you do that? I think you have to click here and then say I want a new folder, and then it creates a folder with this name, and then if I want to, I can move other things in there. So here I select this by clicking the checkbox, and then I say that I want to move it. Where do I want to move it? I want to move it into this directory, I guess. Or you can just do terminal commands through here if you're familiar with Linux. So I could remove a folder, I can create a folder, and it shows up right here. You can also, of course, just type terminal commands into the terminal itself. This thing is just a standard Linux terminal. So what is this thing? File? I forgot what that is. So I don't care about that file. I'm going to remove it. So you can do all the things that you normally do through a Linux terminal, and here links to some tutorials, I guess. You can do it through here. You can also open two web browsers at once, and so that's a way to run multiple terminal windows at the same time, which can be convenient when you're doing things. But you can also just use some application like tmux to create multiple terminals in the same terminal. It works pretty well here. So I don't know if you can see this, but now I have three terminals. Sorry about the helicopter. And if I wanted to, let's say in this upper left-hand window, I could start writing some kind of C program or something like my prog.c, and I could say main printf hello, and put in a new line there and close the program. And I can leave that open, and over here I could compile it. So I could say gcc myprog.c, and then it compiles, and it turns out I made an error, which is printf. I forgot to include standard IO, I guess. Sorry, this is kind of boring, isn't it? So now do it again. Not sure what the problem is. Okay, so it turns out that this thing just crapped out. Sorry, the terminal window is not the greatest part about this, but it should work now. And it does, and you can run the program, and you can program in any language here. So you can write Python programs, or you can do Octave programs. Octave is like a freeware version of MATLAB. So you could say this equals rand 4x5, and then you get a random 4x5 matrix, and you can do matrix operations. And so just to give an example of something kind of dumb, that's the transpose matrix. You can do x times x transpose and get a new matrix, and other things like that. Basically everything that MATLAB can do, Octave can do. So let's come back to sort of the flagship application of all this stuff should be the Sage worksheet. So I was doing a lot of exams on the Sage worksheet. So this is kind of a long document. It's taking a while to load. let's go back up to the top. So this is a Sage worksheet. You could make a maybe 5 hour video on Sage or longer. Books have been written on it. But as far as how I'm making these little things, these cells are written in a language called Markdown, which I talked about earlier briefly. It's a really simplified version of HTML. You can put links inside these things. So here, this demonstrates how collaborators will be punished. And you can also link images and do all kinds of things. You can typeset code. When the students need to typeset code, there's a way to do that. This is the underlying, all you do is indent, and you can see that it changes color here. The editor gives you some syntax highlighting. You can also run shell commands just by putting %shell in the upper left hand corner of one of these cells. So what does this do? This just echoes something and pipes it into the MD5 command. If you pre-penned an exclamation mark to something you type into one of these cells, it also gets executed in the shell. You can write Python code by putting %Python as the first line. And I've written some code here, just please gloss over this. But what it does is it allows students to execute C code inside these cells also. So here's a simple program that just says this llama spit left a terrible welt, and the output of the program goes into the output part. And I also wrote something to allow them to execute C++ code. So here's where the questions actually begin, and so I can give the question, and then they can type the C code, which is the solution, or the shell commands, which are the solution, or whatever. So here are the questions, and here are the solutions, mostly C++ programs. So as far as using Sage itself, probably this video is not the best place to go into it, but also you can see that I'm using LaTeX here. So this is LaTeX, and this is the output of the LaTeX. This does all kinds of numerical stuff. Sage can also do integrals, and you can actually see you can do numerical integrals, symbolic integrals. You can take derivatives. It has support for all kinds of linear algebra stuff and number theory stuff, including elliptic curves, modular arithmetic, large prime numbers. All this stuff makes it really ideal for teaching a cryptography class, but you can also use it just for calculus, and you can also do function plotting. Actually, maybe I can show you, it's sort of irrelevant maybe. Yeah, so I'm doing something with a colleague and making these, so these plots were produced in Sage, and so it has to do with the relative percentage of a sample from the ear of a corpse after it's been sitting in the sun for a certain number of days, and some of these corpses had swabs taken from the nose and others from the ear. But the point is that you can make really nice, like, publication quality graphics with Sage. This is just produced by a Sage program, and it can do this, and it can also graph x squared, which is maybe more the kind of thing that you'd actually be doing in a calculus class. So, I didn't make an outline ahead of time about what I was going to talk about, but I don't really have too much else to say. Of course, there's a lot to LaTeX and Markdown and Python and stuff, but I don't feel like I can describe all that here, so this is a decent overview. Basically, in summary, you get Sage worksheets, you get course management, and you also get a Linux virtual machine inside of which you can do anything that Linux can do, which is anything. And that's all.